Joining us now with more, our friend Paul Rieckhoff, host of the Independent Americans podcast and co-founder of American Veterans for Ukraine. All right, so a lot to unpack here, a lot going on at the White House today. Let's start with what we saw with this meeting, because I do want to get your take on Elon Musk and the first cabinet meeting.
I think it's unprecedented. I think it's shameful. And I think it's chaotic. I mean, I've been to the White House. I've never seen somebody stand up in a cabinet meeting with a ball cap on and just try to take over the meeting on a very basic, respected order.
He was invited, though, right? He was invited to stand.
I've been invited to the White House, too. I wouldn't wear a ball cap and just start roaming around. I think there's a bit of protocol here, right? And about how this looks to the world. We talk a lot about March Madness and basketball March Madness. This is Musk madness. Everything he touches becomes chaotic, becomes unstable. We're seeing that especially at really important places like the Department of Defense, like the Department of Veterans Affairs, where veterans are being laid off. So he's an unstable actor. He's unpredictable. And I think to the outside world, it does look like he has as much or maybe even more power than the president. And I don't think no matter where you stand politically, that's a good thing for America, to our country, or to the world.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the ball cap, because we were talking about that in the green room, and people were asking about the etiquette of removing your cap going into the White House.
The only people I've ever seen wear a ball cap inside the White House is VFW members or American war heroes, right? So, but it's just about the way he seems to respect the order, and the way he respects agencies and federal workers, and the way they're talking to people, I think, is very disrespectful, and I think that's going to cross partisan lines more and more over the next couple of months.
And some people say, we'll see how long this lasts, right? We've talked about maybe some other jobs. We'll see what role he takes on.
I think it's going to last longer than people think.
Really?
Yeah, because Musk has got a lot of power. And I think Trump is smart, and he wants to keep people with power close to him. He's doing that with Putin. He's doing that with others. I don't think he wants Elon Musk as an enemy. He still wants to use X. He wants his money. He wants his resources. So I think he's going to keep Musk close. He might move him around a little bit, but I don't think he's going to kick him to the curb and just get rid of him.
One other thing we want to talk about is Doge, and we want to talk about specifically the Trump administration canceling some of the contract benefits for veterans, because this is huge, and a lot of people paying very close attention to this. Burial services included as well. What's your read on this?
Well, Musk is not a scalpel. He's a flamethrower. And it's just running ramshot across the entire federal government. And when you don't really understand what you're ripping apart, you do things like cut Veterans Crisis Line workers. You cut people who are responding to the 9/11 health registry, which I'm a part of. I'm a 9/11 first responder. You attack burial benefits. I mean, they're not really being precise or even strategic in the way they're approaching it. And I also want to come back to the level of respect. These emails, the tones, the way people get them, it's very disrespectful. You're talking about people who serve their country, many of which want to serve in the government. That's why they continue to work at the VA and DOD. When you get an email that says, hey, you got 24 hours to tell me what you did in the last 24 hours, or you're walking, it doesn't feel respectful. It doesn't feel honorable. And I think that's going to pile up, because people don't appreciate that. They want to be treated like human beings, and they want to be treated with respect, even if they're going to be moved out of the government.
People who have served for years and decades in these jobs, it is very interesting to think about what they're thinking about once they open that up. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. And also, let's talk about NATO, because President Trump was also asked about NATO membership for Ukraine. Here's what he said.
I can tell you that NATO you can forget about. I think that's probably the reason the whole thing started.
All right, bargaining chip off the table, or what?
I don't know why he would tip that hand. I think most of NATO has considered Ukraine, would welcome Ukraine long term. Ukraine I think is undoubtedly an experienced fighting force, right? These people have been through more actual close combat than almost any military we've seen since World War II. They've been an ally to the United States, independent of NATO for decades. They've trained alongside our people. So this 180, again, it's disrespectful. And I think it doesn't acknowledge that NATO is our ally. We helped create NATO. NATO has been a critical force to defending democracy around the world. And to take it off as a bargaining chip, I think is stupid. It's short-sighted. You want to at least leave that out there to put more pressure on Putin and continue to, if he wants to wage peace, I think the way to do it is to get Putin out of Russia, and you can do that by threatening access to NATO.
All right, so before I let you go, if you can keep it quick, I have a feeling I know what the answer is, but your reaction to the gold card situation, the gold visa card.
I think it's just ripe for corruption. I mean, if I'm a foreign spy or someone who wants to do damage to the United States, looks like I can get an easy pass lane into America. I mean, we're having a hard time apparently vetting people crossing the border. We think it's going to be easier to vet billionaires who have $5 million to drop on the table. I think it may sound good initially, but the actual execution should always be centered around one thing: national security. Does this compromise our national security and the way we want to defend our homeland? That should always be the #1 priority.
They're talking about selling them within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, how are you going to do that? I mean, they can't do congestion pricing in 2 weeks. How are they going to do this in 2 weeks?
Right. Well, we'll see how it goes. I'm so glad you're here, Paul Rykoff.
Anytime,
Thank you so
Laura.
much
Thank you.
for being here today.